Welcome back. I don't know if I figured it out. I think I did. So I went to the... Where's history? I went to the little push cart and presented Larry's sketch because the sketch shows like chocolates while this has tea sets. And it said Eureka, which I think usually is a good thing. So Larry, could I ask you something about your sketches? Fascinated by the work of the great lawyers, blah 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 blah. Not exactly. This light blue tablecloth. You painted that exactly as you saw it, correct? I already told you, everything exactly as I saw it. The tablecloth in the cart here on the trim is white. Wow. Your head's so full of crazy theories, the simple stuff just passes right by you, huh? What's I look for? Listen, just before I drew the sketch, I was in the middle of some business with the cart with the tea set on it. Okay, yes, I think this was what I was missing. What kind of business? Okay, now that I know that I'm on the right track, I'll switch to the voice.
What kind of business? That's right, I was in the hiding the pieces of the teapot I smashed kind.
That's nothing to boast about.
Anyway, I was still in the middle of cleaning it all up when Judy came out of the winter wing. I didn't want to get busted for breaking the pot, so I quickly dove out of sight.
Wait, Miss Bound came out of the winter wing?
Yeah, and she was pushing a cart, a different one. That's the one with the light blue tablecloth on it that I drew.
And what did she do with the second serving cart?
Well, I saw her wheel it into the summer wing, but I don't know what happened to it after that.
Oh, is that what... Wait, did she keep the body on ice? Keep the body on ice, take it out of the winter wing, so she kept it frozen, bring it to the summer wing so it could defrost, and then put it in the fountain. Which is why that cart's wet. When she came back out, she was pushing one of those other carts, the kind you can lift stuff with. A lift cart. Yeah, so I called out to her, but she just ran off and left it behind. Never had her down as the shy type, but it just goes to show you never know. Another serving cart, and also a lift cart. Is there maybe another tea set too? You better check with Miss Bound. Oh no. I was hoping for a cutscene. Please tell me. Oh, thank God. The two carts. Are there two serving carts here at the gallery, Miss Bound? Oh, yes. Why do you ask? A certain so-called artist showed us the sketch. I couldn't help but notice the cloth on this tablecloth is light blue. Light blue? I'm afraid your friend must have been mistaken. I only use white tablecloths, freshly laundered and starched. Like the perfect wrinkle-free one in the cart here in the fountain room, right? Exactly. If I saw so much as a blemish, I would replace it right away. Could the color of the tablecloth in the sketch simply be a mistake on Larry's part? Do you have any idea of what you... It was the blue light-up cloth. Yeah. She brought that to the summer wing, dumped the body in the cloth. Cloth came up, body would then eventually melt, and then that would come up. Wait, doesn't ice float? So, with a frozen body, ice float. Well, bodies float too. Wait, living bodies float, dead bodies sink. I think that's how that works. So there's so assuming ice floats and dead bodies sink, does a frozen dead body rise or sink? Do you have any idea what you might have been doing with the sketch was drawn? Let me see. I appear to be carrying out my usual duties. I'd like to ask you a little more about these duties, if you may. Your work. What exactly were you doing when the sketch was drawn? Because from what I can see, your cart doesn't have a tea set on it. I was delivering some chocolates to the investigation officers. Aw, now I'm jealous. I love chocolate. Well, there were a few left over, so here, for you both. I made them myself. I hope you like them. Woohoo! Hee hee, thanks, Miss Bound. Well, why not? They're a little melted, but I suppose it's because they've been sitting around in her pocket. Or were they melted because she went to the hot summer wing? They're super sweet, I love them. Hee hee, I'm very glad to hear that. It may not be the prettiest, but I'm grateful for the energy boost nonetheless. Though perhaps they could do with a little less sugar. Oh, thank God. Oh. And that's that. All that's left now is to await the results of the test on the teapot. To be continued. Yes. Test results have just come in, sir. Traces of Ubiquium were found in the teapot. They were? Just like Mr. Edgeworth said. Curse you, you better not think this means you beat me. You really need to drop this obsession with coming in first, Mr. Winter. We're all on the same side here, remember? We're all trying to get to the truth. What? But first is best. Everybody knows it's better to be a winner than a loser. That's really no way for a prosecutor to think. Not a successful one, anyway. What? But I... Enough, Mr. Edgeworth. Please refrain from taunting the boy. Ignore him, Eustace. He isn't worthy of your attention. But Gavel... Oh, alright. Why don't I take care of things from now? In the meantime, you can perform the far more important task of going and checking on the victim. Oh, yeah. Good idea. I'll be right back. Excellent. We shall see you shortly, then. Mr. Winter's annoying, but totally harmless. Judge Gavel, on the other hand. Now... Miss Bound, perhaps you could explain why traces of Ubiquium were found in your teapot. I had no idea there were any in there. Perhaps it's one of the ingredients in the dishwashing soap I use? So you were telling the court you did not intentionally put Ubiquium in the teapot? Yes, exactly. Why would I? Until today, I had no idea that could even be used to make poison gas. You're a trained actress, are you not, Miss Bound? I'd have thought you would have been more convincing liar. What do you mean? You have access to the Ultimate Cookbook, correct? A book that just happens to contain instructions on how to create the poison gas used in the attack. Meaning it's perfectly possible for you to know exactly how to make it. You're very well informed, Mr. Edgeworth. Miss Bound, is what Mr. Edgeworth said true? The book does contain information on how to make the poison gas, yes. But the fact that I have seen it doesn't make me guilty. Can I ask exactly how the gas was triggered? The victim used a blowtorch to heat the lid of one of the display cases, thereby melting the Ubiquium. Hehe, I see. But he locked himself in the room too, didn't he? Surely that and the fact that he triggered it himself wouldn't it point to being a suicide attempt? So she's not willing to admit to anything, despite the hee-hee. Furthermore, where would I have even gotten hold of the Infesticide Ultra? I don't know, perhaps you stole it? You know, I did bump into Moody Judy a week or so ago. And that very evening I noticed my Infesticide Ultra had gone missing. Judy, surely you didn't. Alicia, you carry your bag of pharmaceuticals with you everywhere, don't you? There would have been any number of opportunities for someone other than myself to steal it from you. That's true, and I don't have any hard evidence that it was definitively Miss Bound who stole it. Judes, there's clearly something you're not telling us. Why don't you just come clean? We all know you'd never hurt someone for no reason, so... Not you too. You think I'm guilty as well, Mr. Fender? Can you blame me? You've got one wing disguised as another, a gas trap in one of the display cases, and you're the proprietor of the establishment. It's looking like you did it, kiddo. You've got this all wrong. You have to remember, the gallery doesn't have any security cameras, nor any security personnel. If some ill-intentioned person or other wanted to get in undetected, I don't think they'd have much of a problem. Wow, you're practically asking to be burglarized. You need to be more careful. A great thief could have a field day in here. And I don't think she's joking. And actually, it seems that Mr. Gusto did in fact enter the gallery before it opened. Sheesh. Judy's one tough cookie. She's not budging an inch. Maybe it's time to rock a little technique Gregory taught me back in the day. And what technique might that be? So hear me out. Everything's connected to what happened 18 years back, yeah? And since we're not getting anywhere by focusing only on the here and now, maybe we ought to approach this from a different angle and look at the past for clues instead. A turnabout in thinking, so my father used this method as well. Alright, let's run this through the old Thinkatron. How was Jude's involved in what happened then? According to Ms. Bound, it was because of her that Mr. Frost's flavored ice sculptures melted. And yet his sculptures are here on display at this very gallery today. She said she had someone recreate them, but is that true? Is it possible that she... Thank you, Fender. I think I know what I need to ask Ms. Bound now. Hehe, don't thank me, thank your pops. Now take it away, Milesy. I'll grab the popcorn. Ms. Bound, you say that you were the one that caused Mr. Frost's creations to melt 18 years ago, correct? I'm afraid so. I was young and foolish, and it was a terrible accident. And yet what you did allowed you to open this exhibit, no? What do you mean? Yes, what do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? If you are going to ask such questions, perhaps a formal testimony from Miss Bound might be best. Yes, perhaps it might be. I'd like to know a little more about the Zodiac Hall, and about why Miss Bound decided to dedicate this space to Mr. Frost's work. Very well. If you believe it to be relevant to the case, I will allow it. Miss Bound, would you mind? Not at all. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I'm innocent. Then please, if you could give us some background on the Zodiac Hall and the pieces on display here. It took 18 years, but at long last I was finally able to buy Samson's home back a little while ago. But a place like this is expensive to maintain, so I decided to turn it into an art gallery. To that end, I collected as many Paul Halik's pieces as I could from around the world. Because if I'm honest, it's always been something of a dream of mine to open a space dedicated to his work. Thank you for your testimony, Miss Bound. How wonderful it is that you were able to fulfill your dream. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, everything seems entirely above board to me. Judge Gavell, that was simply the witness' preliminary statement. As you surely know, the value of the testimony cannot be evaluated without due cross-examination. Haha, spoken like a true attorney. Very well. You may do what you must. See, I like her when she's on my side and not trying to, impede me at every case. It took 18 years, we know that part's true. A place like this is expensive to maintain. Turned it into an art gallery, because it's clearly true. So then you collected... press?
Hold it!
Paul Halik. That was Mr. Frost's pseudonym, correct? Yes. He adopted it while he was working as a sculptor in France. I see, I'm curious about some of the pieces you had in your collection, more specifically. How you were able to acquire the Taurus and Gemini sculptures. It was my understanding that Miss Frost died before you could complete them. Yes, I was able to create replicas for the Winter Wing based on the photos of the sculptures he made. Really? Perhaps you can go into more detail on that? Because if I'm honest, there's always been something dedicated to his work. I was able to create replicas based on the photos I took. I think it's this, but I don't know what I would see. Sugar composite matches that of the sugar found in the pale blue liquid in our... Yeah, so these are... Yeah, these are the statues from 18 years ago.
Objection!
I'm afraid you've run out of road, Miss Bound. You can lie all you like, but you can't deny the results of the tests conducted on the sculpture's remains. And those tests leave no room for ambiguity. What you had on display weren't replicas, they were the very statues Mr. Frost carved 18 years ago. Oh, I can probably help explain how they worked it out, if you like, dear. It's the sugar, you see. You might think sugar is sugar, but the composition is actually very unique. You could probably recreate the statues, but the sweet secret of their chemical makeup, no chance. Thank you, Miss Cone. I don't recall asking for help, but still. To put it simply, the statues didn't disappear back because they melted. They disappeared because you spirited them away and kept them hidden for these 18 long years. What? She kept a pair of flavored ice sculptures around somewhere for all that time? Heh, It's not the most out there idea in the world, assuming you had a big enough icebox. Quiet, all of you. Ms. Bound, have you anything to say in your defense? So you've already learned that much? Should I take that to mean you admit to having hidden the flavored ice sculptures in question? No, I admit to no such thing. You haven't proven that I was the one who took those statues away. And you won't, because it would have been impossible for me to do so in the first place. The police were already here when they disappeared. How could I have done it without them noticing? How indeed. I don't yet know exactly how you did it, but I'm far from ready to say that it was impossible for you to have stolen them away. You're a very persistent man, aren't you, Mr. Edgeworth? I am indeed, and I won't stop until I get the truth. I see. Then I'd better tell you exactly what I did that day 18 years ago. What I did. The whole time before judging began, I was waiting upstairs in our living area on standby. During the judging, I had to go change the camera's film cartridge for Samson, but before I could take the camera back to Samson, I discovered Mr. Frost's body. Later, around when your father arrived, I began to make the rounds and serve tea to everybody present. That was when I saw Mr. Gusto entering Mr. Frost's room, and those were my movements on the day it all happened. I hardly see how you could take issue with any of that. That's for us to decide, Miss Bound. Are you saying there's a contradiction in her story, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm more focused on proving the fact that she did indeed steal those statues. The question is, when would she have had the opportunity to do so? If I can pinpoint that, I might be able to prove what exactly she got up to. The whole time before judging began, waited upstairs, sure. During the judging, changed the camera, we know that part's true. Before I could take the camera back, you discovered Miss Frost's body, we know that part. Later on your father, you had to make tea for everybody present.
Hold it!
Just as you did today? Yes. I went around and offered everyone working on the investigation a cup of tea. Present company included, I remembered well. You were here, there, upstairs, downstairs, everywhere with that little card of yours. Interesting. Did anything strike you as strange around that time? Oh yeah. Gregory was singing the praises of Judy's tea, and I think he mentioned his saucer was cold because there was a statue underneath it. The ice block. His saucer was cold. Was this the moment when Miss Bound stole the sculptures? This was the moment. Miss Bound, I believe this is when you stole the sculptures. I hate to contradict you, but the fountain room was full of witnesses at the point, Mr. Fender included. Are you suggesting that I somehow got the sculptures out of Mr. Frost's room right under everyone's noses? That is precisely what I'm suggesting. Right there.
Take that!
My father and Fender had no idea that one of the sculptures was merely inches away from them, because it wasn't just a tea set you were pushing around, Miss Bound, but a hidden ice sculpture in a glass case.
Overruled!
Surely such a thing would have been impossible. How would a case of the size fit on a serving cart? It would have been spotted immediately.
Objection!
Who said anything about a serving cart? What? I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Edgeworth. What are you suggesting she used instead? I'm suggesting that Ms. Bound used this to transport. The lift cart.
Take that!
And this is the cart that Ms. Bound used to move the flavored ice sculptures out of Mr. Frost's room 18 years ago, and it would appear that the very same cart is still here with us in this fountain room. We originally brought it in use for the contest, and you're saying that Ms. Bound loaded Mr. Frost's sculptures onto this cart and carried them off. I am. As you can imagine, all one would need to do is lay the case on its side, add a tablecloth, and it looks exactly like a normal serving cart, thus allowing her to move the sculptures around freely. Can it be? Holy moly, of course! That's why those saucers were so chilly. They were sitting on top of a big block of ice. Jeez, how could you? Impressive. Then again, you are Mr. Gregory Edgeworth's son. I should have expected no less. There isn't a scrap of evidence that I stole the sculptures all those years ago now, and yet I knew that no matter what I said or did, I'd always be under a cloud of suspicion. So you admit it? You admit that you stole them from Mr. Frost's room? Yes, I do. I took those sculptures and their glass cases out of that room 18 years ago. As Mr. Edgeworth correctly deduced, I dressed up the lift cart as a serving cart to do so, and slipped in and out of Mr. Frost's room while I was going around serving tea to everyone. In the end, I'd removed not only the sculptures, but the flavored ice Zodiac blocks as well. Zodiac blocks? I feel like I've seen them for myself before. There's a huge block of ice displayed here. It must be incredibly heavy, though maybe not, with it being hollow on the inside. If the Winter Ring really is an exact replica of Mr. Frost's room for 18 years ago, then even though my father never saw them because they'd already been melted, the Zodiac blocks must have been in the victim's room back then as well. When I had finished moving the 2 ice sculptures and the 2 Zodiac blocks out, I took 2 fresh empty cases to Mr. Frost's room and put them where the original 2 had been. Only the sculptures had been kept in glass cases, you see, to prevent them from being damaged. The blocks were a little more robust, so they had been displayed as is. As stated in the contest rules, we were responsible for providing all display materials, including cases, meaning it would have been easy for her to prepare those empty spares she swapped in. Mr. Frost's room contained quite a few other flavored ice works in progress. I figured if I melted them down somehow, the resulting puddle would look like it came from the sculptures. And that is how the sculptures from 18 years ago came to be in the Winter Wing today. I have to say, Mr. Edgeworth, that's quite the confession. Indeed, and I think she offered it so willingly because she knows there's nothing we can do with it. That's all I have to tell you. However, despite everything I've shared, you can't charge me with anything now, can you? What? How'd you figure that out? Oh my. I would have thought you might know at least this much, given we're at a crime scene. I suggest you memorize the various statues for dummies. Statues of what? Statues of Limitations book, data down. Simply put, K, prosecutors only have a certain amount of time within which they can put a suspect on trial for a given crime. Let's take a closer look, shall we? So, theft, 7 years from the date, murder, 15 years. So it's different for every crime. Murder, 15 years, theft, 7 years? Ah! Yes, Ms. Bound stole the ice sculptures 18 years ago, so it's too late to have her arrested for that crime. That's weird. I don't believe it. Theft is a serious matter, especially when it involves the removal of evidence from a crime scene. However, as you yourself just pointed out, Ms. Bound can no longer be prosecuted for her crimes. Rendering your revelation rather pointless, wouldn't you say, Mr. Edgeworth? Heh, I wouldn't be so sure about that. For you see, the theft of the ice sculpture isn't my principal interest here. I find the body that reappeared 18 years after the theft to be considerably more interesting. Are you suggesting that I also hid Mr. Frost's body? I am indeed. But how do you keep a body hidden for 18 years without anybody finding it? By hiding it in a very unusual way. Oh no, this is interesting. Are you telling me that you know where the body has been for all this time, Mr. Edgeworth? It's not such a big leap if you think about what Ms. Bound has told us already. Let's just say it wasn't just flavored ice that she removed from Mr. Frost's room back then. Very well, if you are confident in this claim, let us put it to the test. Tell me, Mr. Edgeworth, where exactly was Mr. Frost's body hidden? Is the body in the cloud? I think it's in one of the statues. Or at least in a block of ice. But I don't know what evidence I would use.
Take that!
A photograph of Mr. Frost's work. And of the victim's body, Your Honor. You will have to forgive me, but I don't see what you mean. Where exactly in this photo? Underneath the cloth, I'm guessing, on the left. This part. This cloth isn't isn't ice, it's the luminous cloth, which is why it's plugged in here.
Take that!
The Gemini sculpture. Yes, it may look like a sculpture at first glance, but it is in fact Mr. Frost's corpse. What? Surely you can't be serious. I don't see anything in the photograph to support such a wild claim. That's because a certain piece of evidence was used to hide the body in plain sight. And what piece of evidence might that be? The court demands that you present what was used to conceal the body, the luminous cloth.
Take that!
One of those cloths from the Autumn Wing. Yes, when it's made to glow in just the right way, it's so visually convincing you might mistake it for ice. Isn't that right, Miss Scone? Well, yes, dear, but you can make it look just like anything, really, even blazing fire. And the right shade of blue would make it look like ice, yes, exactly like it, in fact. Is it not the case that a certain special device is needed to generate these colors?
Objection!
If you would care to take another look at the photograph in the Winter Wing, Your Honor, you'll notice that there is a small box connected to the bottom right of the Gemini case. That's one of the very light-emitting devices in question. Detective Gumshoe even confirmed its presence. In fact, this particular device went missing 18 years ago. Back then, it was no doubt firmly connected to the cloth inside the display case, which means Ms. Bound had no choice but to take it with her when she removed the sculpture. So you see, this cloth and the light-emitting device were being used to create the illusion that Mr. Frost's body was, in fact, a statue carved from ice. No, this can't be. I mean, isn't she safe from this too, though, because murder was 15 years and this is 18 years later? Wait, so you're telling me that when we took that photo of us in the Winter Wing, yes, we were standing right in front of the body. But the body and the cloth were both recovered from the fountain. Why were they found there if the body was supposed to be in the Winter Wing disguised as a sculpture? She moved it on the cart. Because there would have been no mystery as to how the body had been hidden if we found it as is. Ms. Bound needed to remove Mr. Frost from the Winter Wing in order to throw us off the scent. Ridiculous. I don't recall her sneaking around behind our backs to throw a body in the fountain. No, and she didn't need to, because she had another method at her disposal. Her trusty lift cart. The same cart that had been proven so useful in executing her original theft. What? I believe she wheeled the body into one of the other wings and floated it down the stream to the fountain. The frozen body, being quite solid, probably got stuck somewhere along the way, which is why only the cloth appeared at first, the cloth Miss Scone discovered. And then the body followed afterwards once it had thawed enough. It's an ingenious theory, Mr. Edgeworth, but can you prove that it was me? It seems a little unfair to expect me to accept your accusation without proof, don't you think? What about an eyewitness? Do you think someone might have spotted her while she was moving the body? As a matter of fact, I do. And the contradiction in this piece of evidence? It's the artwork. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, do you have any evidence to support your allegations? Of course, I have a piece of very compelling proof right here. Then please, present it to the court. What evidence do you have to prove Larry's sketches?
Take that!
More drawings? And is that me? Yes, Mr. Butts drew sketches of people as they passed through the fountain room. But what I'm interested in is the cart we see here. Miss Bound's serving cart, what about it? You don't see it? She's using the same trick she used 18 years ago. Ergo, we know that Miss Bound was busy moving Mr. Frost's body when this picture was being drawn. What? If I may, I don't see Mr. Frost's body anywhere in that sketch. All I see is a picture of me delivering chocolates to everyone. Really, then allow me to direct your attention to the color of the tablecloth, Miss Bound. I'd originally thought that Mr. Butts had made an error, but he assured me that couldn't possibly be the case. This tablecloth appears to be light blue. Yes, a shade of tablecloth that Mistbound doesn't seem to own. The cloth only appears to be light blue due to the body hiding just underneath it. What? But the shape of the card is perfectly rectangular, just as one would expect. Surely it would be immediately obvious if the tablecloth was being draped directly over the body. Not if the body had been placed inside one of the hollow zodiac blocks in the winter wing. Place one of those on the lift cart and it would easily pass muster as a regular serving cart, wouldn't you agree? Goddess of Justice. Mistbound, surely now you must admit that it was you who moved the body, just as you did 18 years ago. Haha, I didn't expect you to deduce all that from a single, simple sketch. But that sketch alone isn't really enough to prove your theory, is it? You needn't worry on that front. My case doesn't rest solely on Mr. Butt's artwork. Once you had disposed of the body, your serving cart became a simple lift cart once more, which is exactly what we discovered here in the fountain room. And without a serving cart, you had to find some place to put your chocolates. My chocolates? The ones I was handing out? As we saw in the sketch, you had originally placed them on top of the cart. But the chocolates you gave us came from your pocket. Oh yeah, mine was half melted. It was still super sweet and tasty though. Why did you suddenly feel the need to put the chocolates in your pocket, Mistbound? It was because you no longer had a serving cart to put them on, that's why. Ah! One moment, please. You have explained what Mistbound did with the chocolates and the lift cart, but what about the tablecloth? Where did it go? Indeed, if stashing the chocolates in her pocket was the only solution she could think of, I doubt Mistbound had the time to dispose of an entire tablecloth. Isn't it the thing? Well, Mr. Edgeworth, do you have an answer for me? Mistbound didn't hide or dispose of the tablecloth, Your Honor. In fact, it's right here in front of us. Perhaps you would care to enlighten us. Where exactly? Okay, so... Well, it's not in the fountain because what's-her-name took it out. So then that cloth isn't the, On her? Is she hiding it? Mistbound has the tablecloth on her person, and in plain view, in fact. Oh, the thing that's wrapped around her. And it looked like, okay, so it wasn't the... Yeah, no, because if it was not plugged in, then it would be dark blue. It was light blue because it's a white cloth over an ice sculpture, so the color would kind of go through. No, surely you don't mean... Mistbound. It's the cloth around your waist, isn't it? Given that the Zodiac blocks weren't kept in glass cases, that cloth would have been in direct contact with the ice. All we would need to do is confirm my theory is to test for the cloth for traces of sugar used in Mr. Frost's work. The game is up, Mistbound. It's time to come clean. You won't need to test the tablecloth. Everything you said is true. I stole Delicia's Infesticide Ultra, and I moved Mr. Frost's body. It was me. It was all me. Delicia, I'm so sorry. Last week I went into your bag and took it. And then I put it in his pocket, hoping to make it look like he had tried to do himself in. I also made sure to leave no fingerprints but yours, just in case the police suspected foul play. Judy, you... oh gosh. But Judes, why? Weren't we supposed to be on the same side, all fighting together to free Samson? We were, but I couldn't afford to get arrested, not yet. Well, until I'd finally proven that Samson is innocent. I always planned to give myself up in the end, I swear. I know it's easy to say that now, but why do it this way, though? It's not like you... I'm sorry, Mr. Fender. I've caused you so much trouble. I've been the guilty party all along, ever since that day 18 years ago. Are you trying to tell us that the true culprit in the IS-7 incident was you? I committed a terrible crime. I took those sculptures and I stole them for purely selfish reasons. The moment Mr. Frost died, they became more than mere entries in a confectionery contest. They became the final works of Samson's favorite artist. I couldn't allow them to just melt away, not before he came home. And that meant I couldn't let anyone near them, not even the police. So I hid them. I knew it was wrong, but I just had to. I put them in the cold storage room for safekeeping. But what I had actually done was far worse than anything I could have possibly imagined. Because who would have thought that Mr. Frost's body itself was posing as one of the sculptures? So she didn't know about the body when she stole the sculptures. Samson is a kind man, a saint. He could never kill anybody, never. And yet, because of what I did, the police never found Mr. Frost's body, and Samson was found guilty. After all he'd done for me, he was my family, the only family I've ever had. He was the most important person in the entire world to me, and Jude's. After his conviction, I was forced out of our home. I was finally able to return only a few days ago, and when I did, I went to the cold storage room to check up on the sculptures, and that's when I saw it. Mr. Frost's body. It had been there the whole time. Of course, by that point, the statute of limitations had expired, so I did what I did today, because it was the only way I could think of to make things right. It seems I've misunderstood her intentions. Everything she's done really has been for Mr. Tangora's sake. Hey, what are you thinking about, Mr. Edgeworth? Something that's been puzzling me. Why did Miss Pound use poison gas? Why not a more reliable method? And why disguise the Autumn Wing as the Winter Wing? The only reason I can think of is to confuse someone who was here 18 years ago. Yeah, I wonder what she had in mind. If she was trying to prove that Mr. Tangora is innocent, Miss Bound's ultimate goal must have been to find the true killer. Could she have been trying to discover the identity of the true culprit? Miss Bound, your ultimate aim was to see Mr. Tangora cleared of all charges, correct? And to that end, you had to expose the real killer and have the police find the body from 18 years ago. Is my understanding of your intentions correct? Exhibiting the sculptures was sure to force the killer to return to the crime scene. After all, they were the only person apart from you who knew that the body was hidden in the iceworks. So they would have freaked out thinking the body was about to be discovered and come running. Exactly. But Miss Bound ran the risk that the killer might successfully cover their tracks this time. In the worst case scenario, they might have even been able to remove Mr. Frost's body from the scene. So how could she lure the true killer into revealing themselves without putting vital evidence at risk? Oh, I see what you're getting at. You're saying that's why the Autumn Wing was all Winter Wingy. I am. You were betting on one thing, Miss Bound, weren't you? That whoever opened the Pisces case you had so carefully disguised as the Gemini case would be the real perpetrator of the IS-7 incident. No. But that would mean the real killer was... Enough, not another word. Do you realize the implications of what you were saying, Mr. Edgeworth? Are you prepared to stand behind the accusations you are clearly about to make? Miss Bound set a trap for Mr. Frost's killer, meaning that whoever found themselves caught in that trap is highly likely to be the guilty party. But I lack the evidence to support such an assertion. To accuse someone without any evidence is not to be done lightly, so should I really go ahead and make my accusations and name Mr. Frost's killer? I will make the accusation. My ultimate goal is to see the truth exposed, and to do that, I need to seize the moment. Yes, Judge Cavell, I am prepared to stand behind my accusation. I know exactly who is to blame for the IS-7 incident. This dude.
Take that!
Mr. Gusto, the victim of the poison gas attack, is the perpetrator behind the IS-7 incident. Gusty? Mr. Gusto? Miss Bound, as we have established, you knew that the opening of the gallery would lure in the real culprit, and you set up the poison gas trap in order to catch them. Do you dispute the facts thus far? You're a very impressive man, Mr. Edgeworth, just like your father. And of course, you're absolutely right. But perhaps you could tell us exactly what happened in your own words. Of course, I have nothing to hide anymore, so I might as well tell you everything. As you said, I set a trap here in the gallery to try and catch Mr. Frost's killer. Before we opened, I made sure that the door to the Autumn Wing was the only one that was unlocked. When opening time came, I went around and unlocked the doors of the various rooms, and found that the Autumn Wing had been locked from the inside. The killer is on the other side of the door. The thought, well, it frightened me. And then she simply walked away, leaving him to fall victim to her poison gas attack. When I heard that Mr. Gusto was being treated for gas inhalation, that's when I knew he was the murderer. All that was left was for the police to find Mr. Frost's body, and then Samson would finally be proven innocent. At least, that was my plan. Judes, why didn't you tell me? You know I'm always here for you, right? We could have found another way. It didn't have to be like this. Thank you, Mr. Fender. You've been so very kind to me all these years. But I'm the one who created this mess, so it was up to me to try and clean it up. I didn't care what it took, so long as I could get Samson out of that awful place. Judy, Judy, Judy. 18 years ago, the police managed to cover up the fact that Mr. Frost's body had gone missing. If I went to them now and said it had reappeared, I was afraid they might try to cover things up again. So I worked to set off a very public incident here in the gallery, in front of as many witnesses as possible. I'm so sorry, Judy. You, Samson, Gregory, I let you all down. Fender, this can't be easy for him. No, I'm the one who should be apologizing. Mr. Edgeworth, Mr. Fender, I hope one day you can forgive me. And whatever punishment I have to face, I'm ready to accept it. But please, if I may ask one thing of you, it's that you simply must clear Samson's name. The way the truth of these past 18 years had come to light was unexpected, to say the least. And yet, it had only set us down a path towards an even more shocking end. To be continued. Ba-ba-bum. Yes, I will save. And with that, that is where I am stopping. Bye-bye.